Okay, so CP4C. All right, so let's come back to CP4C. In the last, so on Monday, I talked about this vision for CP4C. Where it's a platform, so it has several aspects, right? It's all intended to enhance collaborative use of CANISM. And then I listed some attributes of CP4C, basically as we proposed a few years ago to Compute Canada, as was, about what it would comprise, and also as we've been sort of re-articulating in some of our proposals since then. So where are we with these things? So this is sort of red, yellow, green traffic light icons for this. So I think so yellow means it's in progress. It's a good thing. Okay. So we do have a technical workflow, and we do have reasonably good documentation about everything. Like yesterday showed that if you focus and don't expect like a trivial amount of work, but if you're actually willing to put in the hours it takes, like a few hours, you'll be able to run and analyze simulations with this setup. And reproduce them and even tweak them and create your own perturbation experiments. We definitely have compute resources. That's something that we wanted and we got. Okay, so that's a go. This development workflow, I would say, is not really begun yet to bring new capabilities to CANISM. That's something that requires some thought, like how that would work with the external community. That's something that's, I would say, still has a yellow light internally at ECCC. How that development workflow actually goes is something they do, but they're working on improvements. And then I'll show you evidence that we do have the beginnings of a support policy. So and a use we have a policy document in draft form. So I think that's a yellow as well. So I'd say CP4C is kind of advancing, and we're trying to keep track of what we're trying to achieve with this project. I wrote some ideas down here about what does CP4C add? Does it add anything to CANISM? What does it add for us? And basically why you should join CP4C if you haven't yet. Okay. First of all, CP4C is the officially endorsed channel with Environment and Climate Change Canada to do work on CANISM. So I think that's a self-evident advantage. All right. We do have these shared computing resources, including this 100 core year allocation that I'm talking about. We have this collective database of runs that this is not very well articulated, but the idea is that you can use the RTD to compare any of your runs, right, that are done within CP4C to the other runs that are documented. And as we all work together and start to generate a bunch of these new simulations, that database will only get richer, right? So this is actually really a good common resource to share. As we get funding, and we're starting to get some funding, and there's a pending proposal, you will get access to the technical support through the staff we hire. I think being part of CP4C, I think you'll have, because of the first point, you'll have a good chance or a better chance of influencing technical priorities like updates to input files or model capabilities that are needed, or dealing with porting issues. And finally, we want to ask for more resources, maybe to move away from modest resources to substantive resources, maybe more than 100 core years. And I think if we work together, we can write such proposals much more effectively. So if we have a large community and we start to approach the size of other collaborations that are represented in DRAC, such as the CHIME collaboration, other sort of consortia, I think we'll have more leverage and clout in the system. And I think that's a very good thing. Geoscience is not very well represented in HPC, and I think we can do a lot better. So this is kind of a bigger picture goal. Okay, so hope you'll interrupt me if you disagree with anything I've said. How to get involved? Join the mailing list. Okay, I'm going sort of through levels of commitment here. Read the working group meeting minutes and materials. These are all available on the wiki. Engage in our biweekly meetings and also the A4D meetings that Michael invited you to. Contribute to the planned runs survey. This is something I'll show you in a second. Send in technical requests, and I'll talk about how to do that shortly. And participate in proposal development and promote research opportunities, so we can start collaborating on lots of different opportunities through CP4C. And that doesn't have to be the whole of CP4C; it could just be subgroups as well as we wish. Okay, so I just wanted to flash this policy document. You can't see it, can you? It's going to show up as, it's in a different, can you see it? No, right?
No.
No. Okay, yeah. So the policy document is something that I've shared before. I'm not sharing it right now through a link, because I don't have it posted anywhere. But I think it's right here. All right, so this policy document is entitled Towards a Collaborative Agreement between ECCC and CP4C. And so we have to explain, what CP4C is about, this is all the things I've said already, okay? But probably the most important part of this is the statement of principles, and these are tabulated right now in terms of, overarching principles about the model and the governance of the modeling system, and then sort of a set of mutual commitments from CP4C to ECCC and vice versa. That's the way I've drafted it, and it's gone through a couple of drafts, and it hasn't really been, actively opposed. I think there's some editing going on right now internally at ECCC, but it's about how we manage all this, without getting in the way of development, but enhancing the development going on. And then we talk about implementation of these principles. And finally, there's some important appendices, which include our current plans, all right, runs. This is an outdated table right now. A list of technical tasks, and then a list of membership, right? So we don't have an official membership yet, but this is one of the things we're working towards. So that's where the policy document is, and that's something we need to work on, especially in the fall, or summer and fall. Okay, going back to my presentation, let me see, stop sharing that, start sharing my presentation again. I realize now I have a bunch of links in my presentation. It won't be very good if I keep bouncing back and forth, so I'll just describe them more verbally. Here we go. All right. So there's you've heard about this survey. So the survey is basically a very simple questionnaire in email form that Katie will send you. It has a series of questions, and it's just to get written down the kind of use you want to make of CAN-ESM. So for the general people who don't want to join CP4C, I don't expect you to do this, to fill this survey in, but I think it is an expectation that if you're planning to do work within CP4C, please provide us with the information of what you want to do. And this is so that we can start to get a sense and give ECCC a sense of how the community plans to use the modeling system. I will not click this link, but it is available in the presentation. It's a link to our planned survey, our planned run survey, and it has a password, which I will share. So this is because it has science plans in it. We didn't want to share it with everyone, but it is something that that we can share the password. Very simple. It's easy to break the password. I'll just say that. Okay. There's also a technical priorities spreadsheet, which I won't show you, but it's kind of, we're making a list of priorities as we go, and we've in our bi-weekly meetings, and that's something that you should take a look at and contribute to as well. And this will give us, as we start getting more organized, we'll actually change this format into something else, which I'll get to in a minute. So that's kind of the status. All right. I know I'm over time, so I think I'll just plow ahead and talk about our plans. All right. So the plans, the key next steps is that we have to update the policy document. We need to kind of make progress on a lot of the elements inside this policy. And here I'm leading on the steering committee for a lot of work on this. So we have to draft a user agreement that people sign off onto when they join CP4C. We have to have a user list that we have to establish, and we have to outline our initial technical priorities. So notice that this is not scientific priorities. Actually, I don't want this document to cover that. I think it's just more talking about the different science that people want to do, rather than saying this science is more important than that. On the communications platform, I think the wiki's working fine. I think we should develop a simple landing website for people who aren't technically inclined to look at this project, so that people know like what this project is about without having to dive deep into the world of GitLab. And so that's going to be something that an extra sort of piece to maintain, but I think it's important just to have a general communication platform to the outside world. We're going to keep using Slack. I think this is actually more of a proposal. I propose that we keep using Slack, but we don't pay for a license. That's because I'm just not convinced that we actually need to have a Slack license to make progress. And we're going to continue with our email and there's a generic CP4C email and then our CP4C mailing list for announcements. Something's really, okay, I'll let one of them in. Okay, in terms of issue tracking, I think Neil has convinced me and actually Michael as well that we could go for using this GitLab issue tracker as a platform for CP4C. So what I would think that means is that we need to move our Excel spreadsheet over to GitLab, and so what will be very helpful is that if we have a template for issues, you know, whether they're bugs, more typically though they're often like general capacity needed, like dealing with multi-factor authentication, dealing with permissions, you know, there's sort of general tasks. And so I think if we have a template, it'll make it easier for people to break down their requests into manageable pieces. And maybe we talked about having an email interface to this issue tracker. I'm not so sure if that's necessary, but we can talk about that as well. So that's my plan. That's my proposal for that, for dealing. So instead of buying a Stack Exchange enterprise license or a Slack license, I think we should use GitLab, the free version for now. If we need to buy an enterprise, I'm not quite sure why, but if we did, we could maybe invest in that with some funds. The meetings and communication, this is all pretty, this could have been under status actually. Everything here is stuff that's already ongoing, okay? But just to say that we've got a lot of opportunities to interact, right? And so, you know, if we keep up this CMOS session, I think that'll be a good thing. If we make this workshop an annual activity, that'll be give a nice rhythm to everything. Okay, and then finally, yes. So waiting for the GNC. How many times do you have to hear that? Okay, if we get the GNC, once that comes in, there'll be a lot of work. We're going to have to develop position descriptions and you know, have a hiring process. And so that will be a good time to hear from people about what the needs are. But it'd be great to hear that as we go along about, you know, what they see the sort of ideal people in place. I have some ideas myself. We've drafted some ideas, but it would be good to talk about that. We have some final issues to dealing with DRAC for our allocation. I think at that point we'll be in a really good shape to prepare for the next RPP submission, which the deadline is usually November. So November 2024, if they still have the RPP screen, then that I would like to, you know, solicit help and ideas to have a really good list of PIs to participate in that. And then, of course, if there are other proposals, there are some funded proposals already that have been talked about in our working group meetings, you know, to coordinate how those interface with CP4C. Again, without interfering, but if it benefits, if there's mutual benefit to that, I think I'd really like to hear about that. And, like, for example, Ivy has mentioned the Answer Alliance funding they've received for Hawk, and you know, that this is like a really good opportunity, I think. And there might be other proposals that you're involved in that could also offer such opportunities.